Hey, what's going on, you guys? Hey, welcome back to another episode with iTrack. Hey man, WiTrack all 2026. Sub up if you haven't already. Bill Clinton has decided to speak out for the first time about these depositions. And let's pay attention to body language, man. Let's get into it. Shout out to the chat. Make sure to hit that hype button, smash the like button, and sub up if you haven't already. Let's do it.
What do you mean that Hillary Clinton was screaming?
She was unhinged, and I hope that President Clinton is less unhinged today than his wife was yesterday. You'll see it. She responded as well, screaming.
Girls and women whose lives Jeffrey Epstein destroyed deserve not just justice, but healing. They've been waiting too long for both. Though my brief acquaintance with Epstein ended years before his crimes came to light, and though I never witnessed during our limited interactions any indication with what was truly going on, I offered the little I do know in the hopes that it would help prevent anything like this from ever happening again. I also have to say something personal. Republicans made Hillary testify yesterday, and she had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein, nothing. She has no memory of ever even meeting him. She neither traveled with him nor visited any of his properties. So whether 10 people or 10,000 people were subpoenaed, including her, was simply not right. So here's what I told the committee. First, I had no idea of the crimes Epstein was committing. No matter how many photos they show of me, I have two things that at the end of the day matter far more than any interpretation of 20-year-old photos. I know what I saw, and more importantly, what I didn't see. And I know what I did, and more importantly, what I didn't do. I saw nothing and I did nothing wrong.
That would be instantly viral if there were any kind of evidence of Bill or Hillary screaming in the deposition. Because even in your mind, something like that sounds hilarious.
Researchers just proved that AI can figure out who you are online, even if you've never used your real name. A team from ETH Zurich and Anthropic built a system that takes anonymous Reddit comments, forum threads, interview transcripts, and strips away your anonymity using the same AI models you use to chat with every day. The AI reads everything you've written, extracts patterns, your interests, your location, your writing style, small details you've dropped without thinking, then searches the internet to match those patterns to a real person. In testing, it matched anonymous accounts to real people with 90% accuracy, and it gets better with every piece of information you've ever posted. If you thought you were anonymous, the way you write says otherwise.
Hey, you are watching it in real time. 5 years ago, 3 years ago, you couldn't have imagined anything like this. You're being watched at every corner if it isn't obvious enough.
Oh, loved it. It's so beautiful. And having Michelle, Camilla Cotono.
How do you know?
I know. The eyes, Chico.
I'm telling you right now, that mother back there is not real.
If Jim Carrey did not hate on the pretentiousness and materialism of celebrities in Hollywood so much, I feel like I maybe could believe that he went and got a bunch of Botox and fillers. But that's not his personality. Also, he has $1 billion face. All of these muscles, the way he can contort it. Why in the world would Jim Carrey do anything to disrupt the genius structure of his face? We've also got different colored eyes. Are you wearing contacts? So you're gonna tell me that Jim Carrey is gonna get filler, Botox, change his entire face, and wear green contacts? That's what he's gonna do now? Why would they even present this to us? Is this some big experiment? No way. Where's the divot? This is the mark of the entertainer. You see it in his face. Where is it over here? It's not there. That's weird. He has hooded eyes. Okay, you could say he had some type of lift or something, but the entire shape of the eyes changed and the eye color. I have no words. From this to this, this guy's giving like Elvis. Jim Carrey's talked about aging naturally and gracefully in interviews in the past. I just can't with how weird Hollywood is. I just can't anymore. Farewell, sir. You will be missed. And wherever you went, I hope it was fast and painless.
Now, you've seen the pictures side by side, right? So don't tell me that was the same person. Let's just all take a look at what we just saw.
Fun fact of the day. Howard Hughes's famous wooden airplane, the Spruce Goose, was almost entirely made of birchwood, not spruce.
We have the fastest rate of new cancer of anywhere in the history of human civilization.
What?
Yes.
Can you repeat that?
We have the fastest rate of new cancer of anywhere in the history of human civilization.
Iowa.
Matter of fact, if you live in one of the top counties for cancer in our state, they're all rural counties, your lifetime chance of getting cancer is 1 in 2. And if you take Iowa as a whole, and you compare it to, say, a state like Nevada actually has fairly low cancer rates. In any given year,
Nevada is the highest smoking rate out of 50 states, but one of the lowest cancer rates. Iowa has very low smoking rates relative, certainly to Nevada, and has a really high cancer rate. I'm just not a scientist. I'm just noticing.
I picked Nevada because I needed to pick a state that I was like looking.
Nevada is the highest smoking rate in America. Look it up.
So if you choose to live in Nevada over Iowa, in any given year, your chance of getting cancer is 40% less.
Why have I never heard this before?
40%. If you take the top county for cancer in our state and you compare it, 70% less.
Actually?
Former U.S. Air Force pilot and F-35 instructor Gerald Brown was arrested yesterday and is accused of providing training to Chinese military pilots. Brown had served a 24-year career in the U.S. Air Force, during which he commanded units with responsibility for nuclear weapons delivery systems.
Scientists have developed liquid trees, a technology said to be up to 60 times more efficient at producing oxygen than real trees. The concept may sound unusual, but the idea is straightforward, creating a system that can perform photosynthesis without relying on traditional trees. This innovation, called Liquid 3, was developed by researchers at the University of Belgrade in Serbia. Liquid 3 consists of a glass tank holding around 600 liters of water filled with microalgae, single-celled organisms capable of photosynthesis, just like plants. When polluted city air circulates through the tank using small pumps, the algae absorb CO2, convert it into biomass, and release oxygen as a byproduct. The system runs entirely on solar power, eliminating the need for an external power grid. Microalgae are biologically efficient, producing oxygen at rates up to 60 times higher than trees. Unlike plants, they don't use resources to grow trunks, bark, or leaves. One Liquid 3 unit matches the efficiency of a single mature tree. However, it's not intended to replace real trees and remains a prototype. Liquid 3 can be installed in areas where trees can't grow, such as crowded city centers, underground stations, or parking lots.
Hey, did you pay attention just now? Even trees are getting fired and replaced.
Highly intelligent people are more likely to be mentally ill. Not slightly more likely, significantly. Researchers tested IQ alongside psychological assessments in over 5,000 adults and found that people scoring in the top 10% for intelligence were 83% more likely to be diagnosed with anxiety, 73% more likely to be experiencing depression, and 2 times more likely to develop an autoimmune disorder. Your brain processes more information per second. That sounds like a gift until you realize it means more threat data, more pattern detection, more future simulation, more emotional depth. Every cognitive advantage comes with an activation cost. The same processing power that makes you brilliant also makes your nervous system run hotter, louder, and faster than it was designed to sustain. That's why smart kids become anxious adults. The brain that got you straight A's is the same brain that won't let you sleep. Intelligence isn't just a cognitive trait. It's a metabolic load, and nobody warned you about the cost. The neural reset protocol lowers the activation cost of a high processing system. You keep your brain, you lose the burnout.
Could that be what's going on with Kanye? Would make a little bit of sense, huh?
Does the shaking of my eyes affect the way that I see? This is actually called Nystagmus, which is the involuntary, rapid, and repetitive movement of the eyes. It is also sometimes referred to as dancing eyes, which is my favorite way to call it because it makes it sound really cute. Nystagmus is a contributing factor to my visual impairment, so it directly affects the way that I see. It is a common symptom of albinism, but it isn't exclusive to albinism, so people with other visual impairments can also have it. Contrary to what you might believe, in my case, my vision doesn't actually shake, and that is because my brain is constantly correcting it for me. However, due to the constant movement, my eyes can't really focus on anything, so everything I see is quite blurry. If I try really hard though, I can actually focus my vision for a short amount of time, but that causes me to get very fatigued and it gives me headaches, so I kind of just avoid it as much as I can. If anyone has any questions on the topic, I'm happy to answer.
OpenAI reportedly wants to build 5 gigawatt data centers, and nobody on planet Earth has a clue how to supply that much power. They're essentially asking for about 1% of all electricity on Earth and a roughly $7 trillion investment. Just to give you an idea of the scale here, a 5 gigawatt data center would require about 5 nuclear power plants to provide power just for that data center. It would be a little bit more than the entire city of Miami, and a single nuclear power plant costs, we'll say with inflation, about $10 billion to build. So for one power plant that hosts one data center for OpenAI, you're looking at a $50 billion bill. And they want to open a ton of these things, like a whole variety of them across the United States, and spend up to $7 trillion on infrastructure spending, both for power plants and the data centers themselves, to run these massive AI data centers. And while I think AI is cool, it's an interesting technology, it has potential for the future, I don't want to output 1% of the planet's power just to running AI just here in the United States. And it seems like he's going to be getting it. Altman and a number of other AI players had a meeting about infrastructure at the White House recently, and the Biden administration announced a coordinated push across the government to speed build some new AI data centers, as he says, in line with economic, national security, and environmental goals. They're not wrong. It's sort of an arms race right now. America feels they have to get their AI going before anybody else, because being behind in the AI arms race means you're basically just a Luddite. And he even acknowledges that it's an extreme, absolutely extreme amount of energy. But he seems to think that our federal government will foot the bill for, if it's $7 trillion, I don't know how many of these 1 gigawatt plants that is, probably like over, actually that's going to be, let's see, 7 trillion, it's going to be like 1,000 of these. We might have to build like over 1,000 nuclear reactors, which is just downright insane.
Mark Zuckerberg couldn't believe it. He said, where are we going to get all the electricity? Because you need double the electricity that the country currently makes just to fire up those big plants. I said, well, nobody can do that. So what we're going to do is let you make your own electricity. Nobody believed it. And I said, we're going to get you fast permits. So we get them within 2 weeks.
Now you can definitely see how much of a rush each of these countries are in to get this whole AI dialed in. Because $5 trillion seems like a lot of money, but I have a feeling they're going to figure it out.
New fear unlocked. During flash flooding in Omaha, Nebraska in 2021, several people became trapped inside a stalled elevator which was descending toward a lower level that was already completely flooded. After water rushed into the cabin and rose toward their necks, someone called 911 while warning that they may not survive if help didn't arrive in time. Rescuers eventually forced the doors open and pulled them out. Despite the traumatic experience, all of them survived and no one was seriously injured.
Seen a lot of humanoids, but nothing as creepy as this one. It is a Shanghai startup that's introducing a humanoid robot named Moya with warm, human-like skin and AI-powered camera eyes that track movement and mimic facial reactions, blurring the line between machine and person. Wild. Moya walks into everyday spaces using cameras behind her eyes so she can interact and respond with subtle expressions. It's designed for public settings like malls, stations, and museums rather than homes. The robot's warm skin and gaze raise questions about comfort, trust, and privacy as robots move a lot closer into our world. Moya, I'm really sorry. I need to find your off button as soon as possible. More at cyberguide.com.
Us touching this tree, we instantly have billions of negative ions going into our body because we have billions of positive ions which are not good for us. They come from living inside homes and air conditioners and air moving across metal surfaces and electricity and Wi-Fi and all of the electrical stuff that's generating positive ions which affect us all the time, 24/7. So if you can do this, the greenery.
Launching a new AI chatbot inside headsets used by employees. The bot, appropriately named Patty, will apparently help with the meal prep and evaluate workers' friendliness in interactions with customers. Burger King says it's meant to be a coaching tool for workers and is set to roll out at about 500 stores.
Burger King just gave its employees AI headsets that essentially act like a floor manager. And if you follow me, you already knew this was coming. A couple days ago, I was talking about the fact that I think more companies are going to start to roll out these kind of always listening type of AI devices. And this is the first fast food company that's actually doing this. So essentially, this headpiece, instead of just taking orders, it essentially gives the employees real-time feedback about things that are going on in the restaurant, gives feedback about how they're engaging with the customers. Restaurant industry is really interesting to watch because obviously they've been phasing out a lot of employees for a while. And so this is just interesting to see how they're starting to introduce AI kind of on the back end in terms of the management layer. If you want to stay ahead on trends in AI, you should follow me for more.
Now, as far as the fast food industry, it's pretty obvious that they make way more money when they have 0 employees. And they're already implementing 0 employee restaurants as we speak. I think they're just going to keep imposing this kind of weird technology until the actual employees decide they need to go do something else. Because they can already run a Burger King without any human being flipping burgers.
Remember, the reality, what's outside of us doesn't form this consciousness. Our consciousness forms reality. A state of consciousness is not something that you occasionally visit. It's actually something that you inhabit. It becomes a part of you. It is you. And then when all of a sudden you start to understand, oh, wait a minute. So in other words, I got something to do with this? You better believe it. You have everything to do with your state of consciousness. Everything. A state of consciousness isn't a mistake. It isn't something that just happens to you. Actually, every single moment, every single day, you are creating your state of consciousness, but we aren't taught that. So we don't think that way. And that's what makes it so powerful is when all of a sudden you realize, hey, wait a minute, I can actually do something about my state of consciousness. Yes! You know why? You are consciousness. Do you understand? You are consciousness. You are.
Part because we modify our food, even fruit. When I looked back through the history of fruit, apples, bananas, etc. looked extremely different before they were modified to be juicier and sweeter, etc.
Completely. It's like dogs. So all the dog breeds today, from Chihuahuas to Golden Retrievers, they all come from wolves. Humans have been breeding wolves together to create these different species of dogs. They all have that ancestor of the gray wolf. So humans are very good at breeding natural things to serve their purposes. And when it comes to fruit, it's the same thing. So as you say, if you compare like an ancestral banana or an ancestral apple to a modern one, they look completely different. And you should pull up these photos. They're fascinating. Ancestral banana, tiny, full of fiber, full of seeds, not very sweet. And then modern banana, full of sugar, low in fiber, really easy to eat. So that's the first thing people need to know about fruit. Fruit is not natural. Fruit is the product of human engineering. However, a piece of whole fruit also contains fiber and water. So even though it's been bred to have a lot of sugar, the fiber and the water reduce how quickly the sugar arrives in our bloodstream, making it more or less okay for us. But the problem comes when we denature that piece of fruit, meaning if we remove the fiber.
And that makes sense because as of lately, I've been hearing a lot about how just juice and fruit, that's just all sugar. You got to eat the pulp, the skin, you know, the whole thing.
29 former workers of Area 51 are trying to bring litigation to the government because they had been exposed to highly toxic materials while they were working at that facility, and some of them have passed away in the past few years. And right now there are at least 29 former workers and their families
that worked in this non-existent Area 51.
That's right, and they are suing the government because they were exposed to toxic materials without their consent or knowledge.
Right.
And they have become sick, and they had been some of the sickness are so strange they began to get rashes, strange fist scale-like rashes in one case, and some have died, and the families are only interested in the cures to their husband's diseases.
NASA just canceled going to the moon, and the space race against China just got a lot tighter. Artemis 3, the planned historic 2027 mission to land humans on the moon for the first time in over 50 years, was canceled. Instead, the mission will be a space rehearsal for the astronauts to try their hand at docking with the lunar landers in Earth's orbit, test their suits and systems, and then return home. The change comes on the heels of the postponed launch of Artemis 2, the mission that was scheduled to send 4 astronauts around the moon in early March, but instead an April date is now targeted after repeated hydrogen leaks leaks, and helium tank issues forced NASA to roll the rocket back into the hangar. NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman indicated Friday that going straight to the moon landing from here, in his words, is not a recipe for success. He went on to say the landers from SpaceX and Blue Origin aren't even ready, and 3 years between launches means you lose your edge. If all goes well following the Artemis 3 rehearsal in 2027, we're still one mission away from humans setting foot on the moon, and the earliest that could happen is sometime in 2028. Any more delays, and China, targeting 2030, could get there first. Make sure to subscribe to Mostly True Alien Stories on YouTube. Until then, is this a mostly true alien story or not?
We need to save ourselves. Kabbalah is the secret map of how the human psyche creates a physical reality. It represents how pure consciousness materializes itself in the physical form. When you study the tree, you understand the psyche, the different energies you can use to bring down from the higher mental planes into the physical world. Kabbalah can be used in two ways: to ascend consciousness from the bottom of the tree to the top, to unify ourselves back with pure awareness, pure God, or used in magic, to bring down the higher forces of consciousness to materialize it and change physical reality. That's why Kabbalah is so powerful.
Lautrec loved absinthe so much, he actually hollowed out his walking stick and filled it with booze. Fun fact, the word absinthe literally means undrinkable in Greek. He would tell his buddies he was going to go choke a parrot, which was slang for throwing back a glass of bright green absinthe. He even created his own custom cocktail, 3 parts absinthe, 1 part cognac. He called it the Earthquake because it would knock you on your ass. Toulouse-Lautrec always said that he'd burn himself out by the time he was 40, but he reached the finish line even earlier than that. He died at age 36. Get Human History on Drugs for more bizarre true stories.
I believe something very bad is getting ready to take place. The amount of coincidences that align with this lunar eclipse are literally impossible. So this lunar eclipse will reach its peak at 3:33 a.m. on March 3rd. That just happens to be the first day of the celebration of Purim. A celebration from when the Hebrews were spared from Persia, which is modern-day Iran.
It's Iran.
Shut up. And what's about to happen right now with Iran? And of course, Iran is allegedly holding Americans hostage now. The Bank of America mural. We know that Trump was born on a lunar eclipse, on a blood moon. We know that Trump is, in fact, the moon child. And they're saying he'll make his attack by Monday.
And speaking of this moon child, they're now saying that they're entitled to run for another term. Remember when he said, like, you beautiful Christians, just vote this last time and you won't have to do it ever again? What was that about?
Well, there's theories, there's conspiracies. What we really need to know is there's no coincidences.
Listen, we need to come together as a society and figure out what the hell happened on February 17th, 1963. Because not only was arguably the greatest basketball player of all time born in Michael Jordan, but we also got arguably the greatest entrepreneur of our lifetime in Jensen Huang, both born on the same day, February 17th, 1963. I just think we need to get down to the bottom of this, figure out what the hell was in the water on that day and replicate it moving forward so we can continue to progress as a society. We need to put all of our minds together to figure out what the hell happened on February 17th, 1963.
Why people think they're using body doubles for Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. For starters, this is what Ghislaine Maxwell looked like before prison. Take note of her hooded eyes and the way that her nose droops. This is a photo of her during prison. She's still got the droopy nose and the hooded eyes. And suddenly, her nose no longer droops, it thickens, and her eyes are no longer hooded. This is not the same person. Same goes for Jeffrey Epstein. Notice in the dead photo, his nose is suddenly tilted, and when he's living, it's not. And then if you take a look at the way that his ear is shaped, it's 2 completely different shapes when he's living versus when he's supposedly dead. And listen to what this mortician has to say about why it makes 0 sense that his mouth is closed in this photo.
When someone dies, every muscle in their body relaxes. All of it, including your jaw. And when the jaw relaxes and someone is lying on their back, gravity takes over and the mouth opens. A jewel, like Jeffrey Epstein, laying flat on his back with his mouth naturally closed. No tape, no visual support, no tension. My brain immediately goes, okay, well, the muscle tone is still there. And muscle muscle tone does not exist in a deceased individual. And this is one of those little details. I know it's little, but it's a big detail.
There's two possibilities. One is the idea that the people who've committed the worst crimes we've ever known continuously lied about it, murdered and raped children, and ate human beings.
Whoa, this is interesting. So Anna Paulina Luna just posted a response to a Daily Mail post that was centered around the declassification of some files regarding the MKUltra program. And her response says the next hearing, the task force hearing, should be on the MKUltra program. Wow. Okay. So you've probably heard MKUltra, right? And for those of you who don't know exactly what it was about, MKUltra was a CIA program that ran from the 50s into the early 70s. And it was based around psychological studies, manipulation, interrogation tactics, behavioral manipulation, mind control, heavy duty stuff. And LSD was used in a lot of these experiments. Most of that was non-consensual testing. That rabbit hole runs deep, let me tell you, and I've never actually done a video on MKUltra. If that's something you'd be interested in, comment it below. Let me know. If I get enough interest, I'll definitely do a video on that. Now, most of the files were destroyed in 1973, but what we know about it came from the Church Committee investigation that happened in 1975. So MKUltra was a real program, and a quick disclaimer, the LSD and the psychological testing, that's all documented. Everything else is speculation. Okay. Anyway, that got me thinking a little bit. So if in fact her comment was just offhand or sarcastic, that's one thing. But if there is truth behind her comment, that would be very interesting. And especially in a time like this when there's so much institutional distrust, right? For good reason. With that being said, that kind of got me thinking, and I have a question. So what would it take for you to regain trust in institutions right now? Things like this, more files, all these things, is that helping gain trust, or is that actually causing the opposite effect? More kind of like, if this is real, what else is there that we don't know about?
Now, if you looked into MKUltra even a little bit, you know it gets deep. Pretty much as deep as those files that just came out. And from what I saw, yeah, YouTube ain't letting not even a third of that come out. A lot of the stuff that they did was pretty vile.
100% of a company gone overnight. So Jack Dorsey just cut 4,000 people from his company Block. That's the company behind Square and Cash App, amongst other things. Not struggling, profitable and growing, and his reason was AI. That is it. AI paired with smaller teams can now do what 10,000 people did with 6,000, and they let the rest go. The stock price actually went up 25%. The market didn't see a company in crisis, it sees the future, what we are moving towards. Every CEO in the world just watched that stock price go up by 25%, and they are thinking the same thing. That 40%, those 4,000 people, that is just the beginning.
Anyone else think it's weird that just 50 years ago, a father alone could support a family of 4 and just a shoe salesman's salary, but now a working mother and father can't even afford a decent house?
The majority of people probably think he's lying. And the majority of people probably also wouldn't believe that gas used to be $1.
What would be the effect if we wind up with digital programmable currency?
If we move there, then if I want you to not be able to leave your home, your money won't work if you leave your home. If I want you to be able to eat foods made with insects and not be able to buy real meat, your money won't work to buy real meat. If I want you to take a vaccine a month and I mandate vaccines for you and your family, if you don't, I'll turn off your money. So I have complete control of your food, your healthcare, your spatial travel, everything. So you are no longer in a democracy or a democratic republic. You are in a slavery system.
Scientists injected himself with bacteria that was 3.5 million years old. In 2009, a Russian scientist found an ancient bacteria deep in the permafrost of Siberia that he calls the elixir of life. He dug up the bacteria, brought it back to his lab to age it, and found it was still alive. Thinking he might have found the secret to extending life, he began his test. He started testing on mice and crops, and the results were promising. The mice lived longer and stayed fertile even in their old age. The crops grew faster and were more resistant to frost. Even the people living in the region where he found the bacteria lived longer than average. He suspected they might have been consuming this unknowingly through their drinking water. Ready to be the human guinea pig, he decided he would inject himself with this bacteria to see what would happen. 2 years after the injections, he said he's feeling better than ever. He hasn't gotten sick, has higher energy levels, and his body is aging slower. And that's all this German model needed to hear in order to be the next human lab rat. She reached out to the doctor asking for injections herself, and after a month, she said she reported the same things as the doctor.
SpaceX assembles their rockets horizontally, and most other companies assemble their rockets vertically. As you can imagine, when you lay them on the ground and you build them that way, you don't have to construct a skyscraper around your rocket. Super illustrative of how SpaceX problem solved every single component of building their company in a cash-constrained environment into finding a more innovative, more inexpensive way of doing something. And I think Elon has this interesting quote where he's like, yeah, actually, the Russians actually manufacture them on the ground. Most of these U.S. companies actually manufacture them vertically. But the number that Gwynn cites is that SpaceX's rocket factory is 50 cents a square foot. And if you vertically integrate your rocket, no pun intended, stand it up, assemble it that way, space ends up effectively costing you $12 to $18 a square foot because you're moving people up and down to build these rockets way the heck up in space. It's just a great illustration of the incredible constraints that SpaceX was under that no other player that's ever reached the scale that they're at has been under.
We've seen recently with the increased use of artificial intelligence in film and television, that AI is trying to replicate iconic voices and even the likeness of actors like yourself. How are you contending with that? What's your thought processes as you see this play out?
I got lawyers.
Exactly. Yeah. Because what if they were to compensate you though? You don't actually have to do anything, but they use your voice to create a character and you get paid. Is that okay?
I think that's a different outlook on it. I remember that some years ago, an English company paid me handsomely to let someone in England who could sound like me do a thing for them.
Wow.
Yeah, that works.
Okay. Yeah, you're fine with that. As long as you're fairly compensated for...
Exactly.
Yeah.
But people have tried to use AI to mimic your voice. Have your lawyers been busy actually trying to fight that?
Tamp that down? Yes. Yes.
Hey, he wasn't playing. He said, I got lawyers. But money always talks, man, until the end of time.
Does NASA have anything to declassify that would be of interest to viewers of this program?
I'm not aware of anything that we would have at NASA to declassify other than say that I'm as interested in, the president's message as probably any other space enthusiast out there. Now, I will say having, I spent 10 years leading a defense contracting company. We operated fighter jets all across the country, simulating, bad guy capabilities. Say, look, there are a lot of, as you would expect, exquisite capabilities that we have as a nation for national security purposes that we have developed. All we have to do is look to the history books, right? SR-71 was a pretty wild capability in the 1960s. Nobody would have imagined that. F-117 was pretty wild. So do I think that there are probably capabilities we have as a nation that we developed and our adversaries that can do some pretty impressive things, sure. So I wouldn't be surprised if that were...
So that puts you in the camp that says a lot of the UAP, UFO sort of encounters and also sort of vapors around it are covers for human technologies.
Yes, I would say generally speaking, I think there are some that I'm aware of that were very easily explainable by not even phenomenon. Like this was a weather balloon at great range that reflected. I know those conclusively. I also know conclusively some of them were related to test programs that were out there. I mean, look, people misidentified a lot of what was flying in the 1960s and 80s. In the middle of the desert with lights on at night, looked strange. Turned out it was B-2. Turned out it was F-117. So I'm not surprised that could potentially fall in it. I would also ask people again. This is a good, kind of Occam's razor thing. If there was intelligent life that visited us from another world, where would you be interested in going to observe us? I mean, Times Square seems like a good spot. The Las Vegas Strip seems like a good spot. I mean, there's got to be interesting areas. Why would you always pick our naval bases? Why would you pick off the coast of Virginia or San Diego or Hawaii? That probably signals it's more of a national security interest.
So this goes back to the interview that we watched maybe 2 episodes ago when Elon was stating that there are government programs that build these UAPs And they're only UAPs because we don't know what they are, but obviously the government has created them. They're top secret. So there's a lot to marinate on. Because this guy's basically said there's no such thing as alien spaceships. People just don't know what they're looking at. Well, you guys, see, that's another one in the books, man. I appreciate you guys for always stopping by, learning, and watching with me. We are running up the subs, so hit the like button, smash that subscribe button if you're not a part of the iTrack fam, man, and hit the hype button, and I will definitely catch you on the next one.